Welcome back, and in this demo lesson I want to give you some experience of working with service control policies or SCPs. At this point you've created the AWS account structure which you'll be using for the remainder of the course. You've made an AWS organization, and the general account which created that AWS organization became the management account of the organization. And in addition to that, you invited the production AWS account into the organization and created the development account within the organization. Now in this demo lesson, I want to show you how you can use service control policies to restrict what identities within an AWS account can do, and this is a feature which comes part of AWS organizations. Now before we do that, I want to tidy up the AWS organization, so make sure that you're logged into the general account, so the management account of the organization, and then just move to the organizations console. You can either type that in the Find Services box, or it should be available in recently used services. Now, as I talked about in the previous lessons, AWS organizations includes the ability to organize accounts with a hierarchical structure, and currently there's only the root container of the organization. Now, to create a hierarchical structure, we need to create some organizational units, and we're going to create a development organizational unit and a production organizational unit. So to do that, select the root container at the top of the organizational structure, then click Actions and Create New. And we're going to call the organizational unit for production prod, so type prod into name of organizational unit, scroll down and click on Create Organizational Unit, and then do the same for development. So make sure root is still selected, click on Actions and then Create New. Under name, just type dev, and then scroll down and click on Create Organizational Unit. Now we're going to move our AWS accounts into these relevant organizational units. So currently, the development, production, and general accounts are all contained in this root container. So this is the topmost point of our hierarchical structure inside our organization. So to move accounts, we need to select them and then move them into each of the relevant organizational units. So go ahead and select the production AWS account, then click on Actions and then Move. Once you're at this dialog, just select the production organizational unit and click on Move, and this account will be moved inside this organizational unit. And we'll do the same for the development account. So select the development AWS account and again click on Actions and then Move. Select the dev OU and click on Move. And now we've got these two AWS accounts inside the relevant organizational units. And if we select each of the organizational units in turn, so prod, and we can see that it's got one account inside the production OU, and then if we select dev, we can see that it's got the development AWS account inside of this organizational unit. So that's a simple hierarchical structure that we've created inside this organization. And the general account, so the management account of the organization, is currently within the root container of the organizational structure. So now that we've done that, to prepare for the demo part of this lesson where we're looking at service control policies, I want you to move back to the AWS console. So just click on AWS and then click on the account drop down, and we're going to switch roles into the production AWS account. So select prod from role history. Now once we're here, we're going to create an S3 bucket. So type S3 into the Find Services box, or alternatively, it might be within the recently used services, but either way, move to the S3 console. So once you're at the S3 console, go ahead and click on Create Bucket, and for bucket name, I just want you to call it CatPics, so CATPICS, and then pick a random number at the end. Remember, S3 bucket names need to be globally unique, so you'll need to pick a random set of numbers different than what I use and every other student uses. So I'm going to pick 1 and then lots of 3s and then 7. And make sure that you pick the US East 1 region for this bucket. Once you've set all those options, just scroll all the way down to the bottom and then select Create Bucket. Now once you've created the bucket, just go inside the bucket and we're going to upload some files into this bucket. So follow the same process that we've used before, click on Add Files, and then attached to this lesson is a link to a cat picture that you'll need to download to your local machine and then upload that cat picture to this S3 bucket. So go ahead and download the image, locate it, go ahead and select that and click on Open, and then click on Upload to upload that picture into this S3 bucket. Wait for that to finish and click on Close. Now this is a picture of Samson, so if you click on this and then click on Open, you'll see there Samson looks pretty sleepy. He does tend to sleep a lot, but he's a pretty amazing cat. But what you're illustrating is that you can currently access the samson.jpg object, and you're currently operating within the production AWS account. Now crucially, the way that you're doing that is you've assumed an IAM role. By switching role into the production account, what you've actually done is you've assumed the role which is called Organization Account Access Role. And if we open this role up and look at the permissions, it currently has the Administrator Access Managed policy attached to this role. So you're operating inside the production account with the permissions that you've gained by assuming this role, and they're administrator permissions. So there should be no confusion why you can create an S3 bucket, upload an object, and access that object, because you have full administrator access, which has been granted by attaching this managed policy to the IAM role, which you're currently assuming as part of switching role into the production account. What we're going to demonstrate is how this can be restricted by using service control policies. So at this point, move back to the main AWS console, click on the account drop-down, and then click Switch Back to move back to the general AWS account. Once we're back inside this account, at the main AWS console, either type AWS organizations or select it from the recently visited services. Now once you're here, click on Policies, and you'll see that currently that most of these options are currently disabled. So service control policies, tag policies, AI services opt-out policies, and backup policies, they're all disabled. Now I'll be talking about what all of these mean as you move throughout the course, but at this point I want you to click on service control policies and then click on enable service control policies. And this will enable the functionality within the AWS organization. Now what it's actually done as part of this is to add this full AWS access policy onto the entire organization. So if we click on full AWS access and then scroll down, this is the policy which is currently associated with everything within the organization. So this has the effect of adding no restrictions onto what any of the accounts within the organization can do. So in effect, by enabling service control policies, the first policy which is applied does nothing. It simply maintains the existing functionality. So all AWS accounts within the organization maintain full access to all of the services provided by AWS. So click on Service Control Policies at the top to move back to the overview of all of the various SCPs that we have available within the organization. What we're going to do is create our own service control policy. Now linked to this lesson is a file called denys3.json, and this is an example of a new service control policy that we're going to apply. So go ahead and download that file and open it up in a code editor. Now this is a service control policy with two statements. The first statement is an allow statement. So the effect is allow, action is star, which is a wildcard, and resource is also the star wildcard. Now this replicates the full AWS access service control policy that is applied by default. So this allows access to all products and services within an AWS account. But this one also has a second statement, which is a deny statement. So this denies any S3:* actions on any AWS resource. So the effect of this is to deny access to S3. Now, service control policies follow the same deny, allow, deny logic as identity policies within AWS, and so this explicit deny overrules this explicit allow, but only for S3:*. So the effect of this is that if this service control policy is applied, then we'll maintain access to all AWS except S3. So we're going to apply this to the production AWS account and observe the results. So to do that, we need to copy all of this into our clipboard and then move back to the AWS console. Once you're there, make sure you're in the policies section of the console and then service control policies, and then go ahead and create a policy. Scroll down and then select all of the existing JSON that's inside this policy box, and then just delete it and then paste in what you've just copied into your clipboard. So just as a reminder, this denies access to any S3 actions on all resources and then allows access to all of the AWS account. And then using the deny, allow, deny rule, which by now you should be at least familiar with, this means that S3 will be denied and access to all other AWS services will be available. And then scroll up to the top, and for policy name, we're going to call this allow all except S3. Once you've put that in the policy name box, then just scroll all the way down to the bottom and create the policy. So now you have two service control policies, full AWS access, which allows access to every operation, and then allow all except S3, which is the new service control policy we've just created. So now go ahead and click on AWS accounts on the menu on the left, and then click on the prod OU because we're going to apply this new service control policy to the production OU. And then click on the Policies tab. And then we're going to do two things. First, we're going to attach the new policy that we've created. So go ahead and click on Attach in the Applied Policies box, and then select Allow All Except S3, and then attach that policy. And so now we have that policy that's attached to the production OU. So go ahead and click on the Policies tab again, and you can see that we have the Allow All Except S3 policy attached directly, the full AWS Access policy that's attached directly, and also the full AWS Access policy that's inherited from the root container. So now what we may as well do to keep things tidy is detach the full AWS Access policy that's attached directly. So check the box next to full AWS Access, click on Detach, and then confirm by clicking Detach Policy. So now the only service control policy that's directly attached to the production OU is the one that we just created. And just as a reminder, this is the one that allows access to all AWS products and services via this explicit allow, but also has this explicit deny just for S3. So now if I go back to the main AWS console, and if I go into the S3 console, remember this is the general or the management AWS account, notice how I can see and interact with S3 within this account. If I go back to the main AWS console and click on the account drop down and then switch roles into the production AWS account, remember this is the one that has this new service control policy attached to it. For the production AWS account, now if I go into the S3 console and just wait for it to load, now we receive a permissions error. You don't have access to list buckets. Now this is because even though this role that we're using does have permissions to access S3, it's operating inside the production AWS account. Because this production AWS account has this SCP attached which explicitly denies access to S3, well, we have no access to S3. Access to all of the other services are unaffected because we have administrator access. We could go, for example, to the EC2 console and then go to instances and then go to launch an instance. And we won't be doing this, but if you just step through, you'll see that there are no permissions errors at any point in this process. So we could launch an EC2 instance. The only thing which is impacted by the service control policy is S3. And so that's the only thing that is explicitly denied because it's denied inside the service control policy. If we go back to the general account, so click on the account drop down and then switch back. Then we go to AWS Organizations, go to AWS Accounts, then click on the Production OU, and then click on Policies. If we again attach the full AWS access and then detach the allow all except S3, now if we follow the same process and we switch role into the production AWS account, because this service control policy has no explicit denies, this time if we go to the S3 console, we can again access this S3 bucket. So we can go inside the catpics bucket and then open the object, which is samson.jpg. And there we go, we can see Samson nice and relaxed. So this just illustrates exactly how service control policies, or SCPs, can be used to restrict access for identities who operate inside an AWS account, in this case, the production AWS account. So we've removed this custom service control policy that we've created. Now let's just clean up by removing this bucket. So select the catpics bucket and then whatever randomness you added onto the end and click empty. Copy and paste or type permanently delete and then select empty. Once that's completed, you can click on exit and then you should be able to delete the bucket. So select it and then click on delete. You'll need to confirm that by copying and pasting or typing the name of the bucket and then clicking delete bucket. And there you go, you've got full control over S3 as evidenced by the fact that you can delete that bucket. So now let's go back to the general account, and that's the end of this demo lesson. What you've done is create a service control policy, one which allows access to the entire account but denies S3, and you've attached this policy onto the production AWS account and removed the default full AWS access policy. And you've observed how that has the effect of restricting the permissions that a full admin role has over the production account. At this point, that's everything I wanted to illustrate. I'll be talking more about boundaries and restrictions as they apply to AWS accounts and identities as you move through the course. But for now, that's everything that you need to do. So go ahead and complete this video. And when you're ready, I'll look forward to you joining me in the next.